Right guys, I wanted to talk to you about painting stations. Now this is one that I made a few years ago, and the idea behind it was that I tend to set up at my table, and it was a bit of a pain when I needed to use the table just to kind of pack all the paints and everything away. So I had some 1/2 inch ply that I had left over from another job. This is what I made. It was very simple. It's just a tray, more or less. It's got the sides and back on it. And the idea was that I could put everything on it that I was using when I needed to move it, pick it up, and then later on put it back down, carry on painting. But I didn't think at the time about the amount of stuff that you use, the paints and glues and brushes and everything else. So I didn't put any kind of storage on it, and as you can see, it's it's quite full. Sometimes it's tidier than this, sometimes it's messier. But if you're working on a larger model, I tend to find that I run out of space pretty quick, and then you're sort of moving things out of the way. So I decided that it was, maybe it was time to upgrade and make a new one. I thought I'd make this video just to show what I'm doing. Maybe give you some ideas and inspiration if it was something that you might want to build yourselves. Right, so I'm going to be making the new one from MDF, just because it's nice and easy to work with, certainly easier than ply. And I worked out that I wanted the board 600mm long, so I bought a sheet that was 600 by 1200, and I got it from B&Q for I think it was $12.50. And they actually have a timber cutting service there, so I was able to get them to rip the boards down the width, which certainly saved me a bit of work. And I've had the base is 380 deep, and then he ripped 3 strips that were 100mm wide for the sides and the back, and then 3 strips that were 50mm wide for all the dividers, and then all I've had to do is cut them to length. Now I've already cut them to length, as you can see. They're all ready more or less to go on. But I want to talk about how I decided on the size. Now I don't know if this is showing up too well, but I've already marked out along the edge here and here where the back and sides are going to go, and I've marked out for the dividers. Now the main area here I've measured to fit my cutting board on, and it's 440 across by 305 back. That's the size of the cutting board that I had, and obviously I could have made it any size I wanted. Most cutting boards tend to come in, or the ones I've seen anyway, tend to come in sort of A5, A4. The one I've got, I think it was A3 when I got it, and it's been cut down because it had a damaged edge on it. But obviously you could make this whatever size you wanted, depending on your cutting board, as long as this middle area is measured from that. And I wanted to have 3 compartments. The compartment to the back here, I wanted to put paints in, and then 2 on the side. Now this one is the same width as the back, and these are 50mm. And the reason I've set them as that is because I use Vallejo paints, and I'll just adjust this camera so you can see a little bit better. This space at the back, as I say, is 50mm, and you can fit 2 of the Vallejo paint pots side by side in it. So I can have 2 rows all the way along. You can also fit, the large bottles are 50mm in diameter, so obviously you can have a row of all of them if you've got 50 bottles of different shades of primer. Not sure why you'd have, but I guess some people do. And the compartment along this side is also 50mm, so again I can fit more paints all the way down here. You could use it to put sprues in, whatever you wanted, but I designed it so that it can take extra paints if I needed to put more paints down. And then the compartment at this side is 70mm, and the idea for that is that I can fit all of sort of my, the tools in it, or whatever I might want to have on it. But it's also, just getting more paints, it's also large enough to take you know, the Vallejo pigment size tubs. You can fit 2 Tamiya size tins in it as well, or if you're using Games Workshop stuff, sometimes I'll still use the odd 1 or 2 of theirs. You know, it'll fit those in as well. Obviously, like I say, I've designed it because I'm using Vallejo. If you were using another brand of paint, you'd probably make this back one, you know, 70mm or so, depending on the diameter of your paints. But that's what I've come up with. You know, the reasons I've sort of done those sizes, and I'm not sure I'll keep that many paints on it, to be fair, but I wanted to have the option. So I tend to have a lot of projects on the go at one time, and you know, my old painting station does tend to get quite full of paints. So, as I say, I've already marked it out, and I've already cut all the pieces. You can see there's the back. Slide these out the way. That side will go on like that. The other side obviously will go over there. And we've got the dividers here. Now the reason I've cut the dividers 50mm high is that the smaller Vallejo paints are 75mm high. So as you can see, when they're behind it, it's high enough to keep them nice and secure. They're not going to get knocked over or anything, but there's still plenty of space. I can easily pull them out, put them back. Now, obviously if you're using the other brand's paint and you need to make it, you know, slightly larger for those, I'll move those out of the way so you can see, that obviously sits up higher than the paint. So when they're behind it, you don't quite have, you know, you can't get the paints out quite as easily as the larger ones. So I mean, if you know, if you weren't using them, you could make it smaller. I mean, I would have made it, you know, maybe 30mm if I was just using Games Workshop paints. But you know, you can still easily pull them out. I mean, it's not an issue. Like I say, this is just how I've done it. I mean, if, you know, if you wanted to make one, you'd obviously make it to suit your own needs. You know, obviously that divider will go there, and that will create another compartment there. I'm not sure, it's not in the shop, but I've cut these small blocks, and that will just go just in there like that. So the next thing I need to do is to pre-drill the holes, and then I can start putting it back together. So I'm going to go and do that, and then I will be back in a moment. Right, so I've finished drilling all the holes now. I've countersunk the back of them all as well, and I've put 3 in each of the sides, 3 in the back. I'm going to glue the back and the sides as well, just to make them a little bit stronger. With the divider, I've put 2 screws to hold the side dividers, but into the base I've only put 1 in the middle, because I'll be gluing that as well, obviously, and that will be get that where it'll live. That's going to be secured with 2 screws through the side, and the one in the centre really is just to, you know, stop it getting knocked forwards to backwards, forwards or backwards I should say. And obviously these front ones, again, they're going to be screwed into there, so that'll keep it nice and safe. I'm going to glue them, and I've just put 1 into the front edge just to, you know, stop it maybe getting knocked sideways and breaking the glue joint. With it, I didn't mention this before, I realised, but and I'm not actually in shot there, but with these blocks that I'm putting on the front edge, on the ends of the compartments, the only thing they're there for really is just to stop anything from falling out. They won't actually be screwed into the base, but they will be screwed into the side and to the divider as well. You know, I mean, they're only little. I could probably get away with just gluing, but putting some screws in. Yeah, again, I'm trying to make it nice and strong. I want it to last, so you know, putting a couple of screws in for what they cost certainly isn't going to hurt. So I'm going to go and get this all put together now, and then we'll have a look at the finished product. Right, as you can see, it's all finished. I did make a couple of minor changes. On the side panels, I've cut the fronts off at 45 degrees just to make it look a little bit nicer. And in the right hand compartments, I've added a central divider, just sort of increase my storage options a little bit. I've got all my tools are in the front, space in the rear for paints, whatever. I've got my pigments in them at the minute. I've added a couple of pots for brushes at the rear, and they were made from the plastic tubes that you get silicone sealants and that sort of thing in. They were 50mm, so they were the right diameter just to slot straight in. I just cut them down on a saw to the right size. I haven't glued them in. They're nice tight fit already. I've just added a divider at the side just to kind of hold them in place, stop them moving about. Got all my paints and everything in, plenty of space left over if I want to add more paints in the future. It's all ready to get on with my next project. So, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching.